Okay, so we've named that one Sharper View Commercial. Duplicate. And duplicate each one of these. Move it around where it belongs. The making of Steve. Duplicate that layer. Down here. And put in the name for each one of these. Okay, so I got each one of my 4 projects in here. I'm going to animate each one of these here. I'm going to animate these items in here. I'm going to pre-comp all of my text as well. I'm going to make it come in at the same time that my video does. So right where the video comes in, I'm going to have the text come in as well. Right there on that frame. I'm going to pre-comp these things. So let me start, put my endpoint there. Option left bracket will put my endpoint on each one of those highlighted clips. I'm going to pre-comp those. Okay, on these 2 pre-comp layers I'm going to add in a fade in. Fade in and out on each one of these pre-comp layers. So I'm going to fade in 15 frames and I'm going to have 0 fade out. Okay, so those will fade in at a certain point, but I want these borders to kind of zoom in. I want to animate those in really quick, so I'm going to grab my layer 1 here. I'm going to arrow down. I'm going to transform under position. I'm going to add a keyframe. Lay into it a little bit and add a second keyframe. I'm going to go to my beginning keyframe and move this thing off screen here. Hold down shift so it constrains horizontal position. And then that will come in, then the video will come in, will fade in. So I'm going to do the same thing to my other shape layer here. I'm going to transform, add a keyframe from position. Go back to this previous keyframe and add a keyframe on that same point as well. Grab that and draw it and drag it off screen. So both of those will come in. At that point, I'm going to have my name and contact screen fade in as well. So I'll grab a fade in, fade out, and drag it to. I'm going to set my endpoint on my contact and Channing resume. I have Channing fade in right about here. So make that the endpoint for the Channing, and then for the Channing contact information, I have that fade in right about here. So I'm going to add an endpoint there. Grab the fade in to both those items there. Right. Put 0 on the fade out duration so it doesn't fade out at the end. So now my name will fade in, the bars will come rushing in, all the video clips will pop up with the text and the contact information screen. And there we go, and that's the way it will look. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Hit Command S, quit After Effects. I'll go back to Premiere, and then it will update here. And now I have a motion menu created. And go to the beginning of my Premiere sequence here and just add a fade in on the beginning, so the clouds fade in. I'm going to add about 1 second here, actually about 20 frames. 20 frames before it fades in. So now it will fade in and play the After Effects clip that I've created. Okay. I want to render this as well, and actually I want my video to fade in a little bit earlier, so I'll fix that later. Right now the bars come in and the video fades in. And one other thing that we need in here is I need some music. So I'm just going to grab a quick MP3 from Soundtrack Pro. Don't use copyrighted music in your project. Make sure that you get some cleared music. I'm just going to grab an MP3 from Soundtrack Pro and use that. Okay, once that's exported out, I'll bring it into Premiere. So now I have my music, got my video. I'm going to drop this in here. I'm going to cut it off right at the ending here and have it fade out at the end. Now I'm going to turn it down. Make my audio levels. Right about there. So once that's done, I'm going to render this whole thing and export it out as a motion menu. So now I can just hit return and render my After Effects composition in Premiere. And once this is through rendering, I'll come back and show you how to export it out. So, okay, once this is through rendering and you've got it all green looking like this, I'm going to export this out. I'm going to hit Command M, hit Match Sequence Settings, use Previews, click on the output name, choose a location. Call this motion menu clip. Hit save and export. And let that export out. Okay, once that is exported out and you have that video clip exported out, you're going to choose a still frame off of this timeline here somewhere. And once you get a still frame chosen here, something like this, you're going to use this for a reference. You're going to go over here and export out a frame, the frame that you're on here. Click Export Frame, it'll bring up in this window. You can choose JPEG. Oops. JPEG, name it, just a highlight reference or something like that, so you know what this is. Browse. Find this, your folder location, choose it, hit OK. And it just exported out a JPEG here in my folder. I'm going to go to this highlight reference, I'm going to right click on it and open in Photoshop. I've got another little file here, this little cloud highlight here that I'm going to be using inside of Photoshop. Alright, once that's opened up in Photoshop, I'm going to open up my highlight as well. Okay, got my cloud highlight here. Select all that, copy it. Paste it onto this image right here. Now the black areas is what it's going to be basically using as a highlight here. The transparencies it won't. Actually, what I'm going to end up doing is just making this kind of cloud look here. Size this down because this cloud is going to be my highlight, but I'm going to actually fill this in completely. I want this black. Just depends on what you're doing, but I want this black here, so I'll fill that in. and that'll be my highlight right there. I'm going to duplicate this, hit OK, move it over. You can do different shapes if you want to for each highlight, but I'm just going to use the exact same cloud for each highlight here. So I'm making 5 different highlights here. So we're going to make buttons out of each one of these. It's going to go navigate to each different. We'll navigate to these video clips and to my contact information screen. So right now I'm going to turn off my background. I'm going to change these layer numbers here. I'm going to make this layer 1 because this will matter once you take it into Encore. Whatever layer you choose first, it's going to choose that is the natural order to select it, when you navigate through your menu. So I'm going to make these go in order here. So it's layer 1, the copy, 2, 3, 4. So it's basically the order that I created them in. And there it is. There's my highlight menu right there. So I can save this as a Photoshop file. I'm just going to call this highlight Photoshop. Save that as a Photoshop file. Now I'm going to open Encore. Okay, in Encore I'm going to make a new project. I'm going to name this Final DVD or Blu-ray or whatever you want to call it. Hit Browse, find a location for it. I'm going to save it in the same location I've been saving everything else. DVD and Blu-ray menu, choose. And I'm going to make this Blu-ray. You want to make sure you do this in Blu-ray because if you're going to do DVD or Blu-ray, it can take it from Blu-ray to DVD, but from DVD it won't go to Blu-ray. So you just want to use pretty much Blu-ray all the time. I'm going to hit default transcode options here. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing at least 25 megabits per second, that I'm at H.264 codec, 1920 by 1080, and 24 frames per second if that's what you've been shooting everything in. Hit OK. OK. And save this project. Okay, and actually before I get started in Encore, what I want to do is I want to go to Photoshop, and I'm going to create myself a quick contact screen. I'm just going to do a still menu for my contact. I'm going to do a new file. I'm going to go under Video, Film and Video. I'm going to make this HDTV 1080p 29.97. This works for 24 frames per second as well. I hit OK. I'm going to stick with the cloud theme here. I'm going to grab my cloud, drag it into Photoshop. Make this big enough. You can fancy this up however you want to. I'm just going to do a really quick menu here. I'm going to put my name. Oops, and I want this black, so. And I put my contact information in here. My phone number is 1-900 hot love LUVE. And there's my email address, channing@hotlove.com. Probably don't want to email that. There's my contact info, and now I'm going to make a button so I can navigate back. Make a separate layer here, drag it down, and this will be a selectable. I'm going to make this a selectable layer later on. I'm going to save this. my DVD and Blu-ray. I'm going to call this Contact Menu. Save it.